second. No, hold on. Will you turn off the music first? You what? Oh, you're gonna dim? Okay, all right. Good morning and welcome to Coffee and Collisions. This is extra coffee for the month of September, so we're so excited to have you in. First off, we want to thank our sponsors for the event, the Economic Development Partnership of Alabama and Innovate Alabama. This program is made possible through their partnership, and this is, so you know, a quarterly program. So what's great is Charlie has truly been on a statewide tour. He's up and down the state as he's talking about the great work of SSBCI, and so we're excited to have him in, and we'll get to him in just a moment. A couple things to acknowledge. If you're watching on a live stream, you're watching on a recording, or you're here in our live audience, we've got a number of events coming up, and it's important to make you aware of them. So tonight, if you suddenly find yourself very interested in 3D modeling, which is an important part of the future of work and prototyping. Braxton Dahl. Braxton, will you raise your hand? Braxton is the additive manufacturing lead here at Innovation Portal. Great title, brilliant man. And he is teaching people how to go through the modeling process for prototyping. And so that'll be here at the building at 5 p.m. tonight. It's a great opportunity for an intro session to learn that. On October 16th, we'll have our next Coffee Chat program. That'll be here at the portal. That'll be on the 16th at 8:30 a.m. Our speaker that morning is going to be Delilah Knoll, founder of Black Girls Healing House, as we continue in our founder series for the Coffee Chat program. And then we want to make you aware, on November the 12th, we will have an innovation showcase. So that's going to be a great opportunity to learn about some of the new companies here in our region that are lifting off through both our Tech Academy program, sponsored by the Regions Foundation, and the G-Beta program, which is part of the Innovate Alabama tax credit program here. So lots coming up. You'll hear more about those details. And we are excited about all that's happening in our community as we see more and more around innovation in entrepreneurship. So we're here this morning to talk about State Small Business Credit Initiative. And so we have with us the expert for the state of Alabama.
Sure.
Okay, I like that. That was a, if you say so. All right, let me give you a little backdrop about Charlie Pond. Charlie leads the state's SSBCI program team. He manages partner relations during that in that function, and he assures compliance with state and federal rules and regulations. That's really important. All right. He joined the Innovate Alabama team just earlier this year after a decade at Regions Bank. Most recently there, he served as their senior leader of consumer growth initiatives, working directly with executive leadership across the enterprise to identify strategic growth and soundness opportunities. He built cross-functional work groups, he drove execution, and he monitored performance in that role. He began his career in private wealth management, where he served a number of customer-facing advisory roles. And I want you to hear this. In the work that he did, he helped with investment accounts totaling more than $175 million in investable assets. So when we talk about the importance of this work, this is somebody who comes to us with great experience. Charlie earned his JD and MBA at Samford University and his BS from the University, that is a capital T, because the University of Alabama is that is an official name, much like the university, the Ohio State University, which I despise. Sorry, I'm from Michigan. Don't hold that against me. And Charlie is somebody that's an advocate for ongoing and continuous learning. He's a 2020 graduate of the City of Birmingham's Academy of Civic Engagement program. 2023, he completed the Business Strategy Certificate program at Cornell University. Charlie resides in Birmingham, Alabama, but he is a native of Mobile, so we're delighted to have a Mobilian back. He and his wife, Maggie, their two children, Isabel and Arthur, and they have two miniature Australian Shepherds, Fitz and Scout. In his free time, Charlie's an avid reader, writer, and podcast listener. He enjoys playing golf. We'll talk about that maybe later. And he cheers for his beloved Alabama Crimson Tide. There you go. That was like one there. Well done. Okay. I often open that up just in case there's a war eagle in the crowd as well. Charlie, we are delighted to have you in with us.
Thank you. That was very thorough.
We are nothing if not thorough. We want to make sure, just like you assure compliance, we assure compliance with a good bio.
It's all in the details. That's right.
It is, absolutely. Charlie, we have been talking about SSBCI in the state of Alabama for a while, but take us in. What does it actually mean? I mean, we know what the words mean, but what does it really mean, and what does it mean for the state of Alabama, this SSBCI program?
Yeah, well, thanks, Todd, for having me, and thank you all for coming and braving a potential hurricane that is thankfully moving eastward. SSBCI, we've been waiting for this for many years. It's a federal program that comes out of our Recovery Act in 2021. Innovate Alabama, which is the company that I work for, is the implementation vehicle for the state of Alabama and how we get that capital, that award of which is close to $98 million. So it's the largest.
Hold on. Did everybody catch that?
Yeah.
$98 million almost. All right. So we're not talking about a couple pennies. We're not talking about a couple dollars. We're talking about game changer money infused into small businesses and entrepreneurship ventures in our state. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's an important point to hammer home because it's the largest program of its kind in the history of the state. And so it's a really big opportunity for the state to put capital into hands of entrepreneurs across the state. So we have a statewide mission. We want to really focus on our rural spaces, but also make sure that we are addressing the needs in our urban centers, Huntsville, Birmingham, Montgomery, Mobile, Dothan. So it's an exciting opportunity. The goal, the program is designed to be self-sustaining and evergreen too. So that's an important point. This is not a one-shot thing. We've designed the program with the idea of taking proceeds, income from the program and reinvesting it into that program. And so we want this to be around much longer than its legislative time, which is about 3 more years at this point. So that those funds will kind of defederalize in 2027, but we want the program to exist much longer than that, and we want it to be self-sustaining and really impactful for not just this generation of entrepreneurs, but for the waves and waves of entrepreneurs coming in the state of Alabama.
I think the term we hear often is catalytic.
Yeah.
The ability to spark not just that 98 million, but extra investments in the state of Alabama, and through that rolling aspect of the evergreen, you're going to be able to see that moving forward and forward and forward. And so this isn't the first time, though, that we've talked about SSBCI even as a program. So we sometimes hear SSBCI 2.0. So this isn't the first time this has happened, but this is certainly, as you said, it's the largest program that has ever happened through that initiative. When we think about that, and we think about the opportunity for growth in the state of Alabama, what are some of more of the goals that you have as you're leading the program that Innovate Alabama has as it's overseeing what that looks like?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to touch on is the fact that we have branded our SSBCI program under 2 banners. So we have our Lend AL program, which is our debt program. That's the vast majority of that $98 million, what it's allocated to. It's about 66% of the funds are allocated to our debt program. Then we have the remainder allocated to our Invest AL program. So that's our venture capital program. We are actually, and we could talk about this later, but we're actually thinking through how we can reallocate some of those funds from debt to venture because of how successful and robust our venture pipeline is, which has, to be honest, shocked everybody, just how healthy and the pipeline was and across the state. And so we're talking about how we can reallocate to level set a little bit. But beyond that, the question goes to kind of what we're expecting out of the program. It's designed, like I said earlier, to be self-sustaining, but it's also designed to be private-public partnership. So Innovate Alabama is a private-public partnership. SSBCI is designed to be private and public because we've got $1 of taxpayer money, and in order to access that $1 of taxpayer money, we have to have $1 of private money. So whether that's through our lenders or through an investor that we're coming alongside of on the venture side, that catalytic opportunity is huge. And we expect not only from a kind of setup perspective of 1-to-1, we expect a return of maybe 10-to-1. So that's money coming back into the ecosystem. And so, what we hope is there's two pieces. Like really, one of the underlining goals of the programs are to get money into, or get capital into the hands of underserved communities, rural spaces. One of our pillars at Innovate Alabama is access to resources. If you talk to small business owners across the state, what they will tell you, and founders specifically, is capital is hard to come by, and looking for every opportunity to access that capital, whether that's through non-dilutive grant money, whether that's through debt, or whether that's through an equity raise. And so this solves a few of those gaps, and it helps close those. And so our goal ultimately is to get the funds out. From kind of an inside baseball perspective, that $98 million it's a lot of money, but we don't have all that money right now. We get it in what we call tranches, and so we have 3 tranches that we can access, plus a kind of incentive-based structure of additional capital on top of that adds up to $98 million. But right now we have 27. And we have to go allocate and get out the door 80% of that before we can access our next tranche. And so it's really important that we find opportunities to get that out. So this is not designed to be some thorough application process that's really hard to get through in order to qualify. It's designed to, if you meet certain criteria, especially on the debt side, if you're able to work with the lender to get that approved, we're going to try to get that money out the door. And same thing on the venture side. It's a question of allocation at this point, and in terms of how we divide up the tranche amongst the companies that have applied and gone through the pitch and due diligence process. And so our number one goal is get the funds out, and we're being pretty successful so far.
That's incredible. I think it's exciting to see, and certainly I think some of the aspects of the deal flow pipeline is something that we're excited about. But let's take a step back. Let's level set, because I think sometimes language can be a barrier. So let's talk a little bit about some of the terms. So we said there's money on the Lend AL side, all right, and that's debt based. For maybe a person who's they're in a small business, they're early on, what does that really look like or mean? How can they understand what that is?
Yeah, so and you've probably heard, if you've heard of SSBCI or you've heard someone speak about it in this state, and Lend AL specifically, you've heard probably the term credit enhancement. And so we've designed the program, and I keep saying program, but really SSBCI is a program, Lend AL and Invest AL is a program, and then under those 2 programs, we have other programs. So we have, I would call them 3 sub-programs under Lend AL. We offer a loan guarantee, collateral support, and a participation program. Our customer is the financial institution, the lending partner that we have, and we've got 24 lenders across the state who have enrolled, and that goes from really high asset organizations to your CDFI and community banks that are active in those communities from a lending perspective. And so we rely on those lenders to provide us a conditional approved loan that if not for this program, they would not be able to do. And so that's one aspect. The other aspect is we have borrowers who approach us directly. And so I wouldn't say that you have to begin with the lender. You can come to Innovate Alabama, and we will help you navigate the process. We have really good TA partners at Mobile Can, at the Chamber, at the SBDC, who really help our borrowers with readiness and understanding what it takes to qualify for a traditional bank loan, and when there's something lacking, whether that's collateral or time in business or any of those things that result in the denial, we try to help that become a yes. And so the banks are able to use our either guarantee of the loan or the cash that we've deposited with that bank as pledged collateral, or if they want to share the risk from a participation perspective, we will offer that opportunity as well. And we've incentivized the bank with certain conditions around interest rate and what we would call like a kickback to the bank. So all three programs are effectively enhancing the credit application so that the borrower qualifies in a case where they may not prior to the program.
And I think that's so important, because one of the things that tends to happen is, we find, is that his? Okay. Thank you. One of the things we tend to see is we see people who, I know I need money. Because when we look at a business, cash is oxygen, right? If you have no cash, you're not breathing. You're not going to make it. So they recognize that. They see that need, but they go too late is what I tend to find. I say when you go asking for money when you need it tomorrow, oftentimes you're late. So one of the most important conversations that we have is, let's start building those relationships early, because even if you're not looking to tap into the SSBCI funds this month, this year, but you're thinking about and recognizing your growth trajectory for the future, you need to start those conversations early. And that's an important part, I think, of this journey, whether you're on the investor side or you're on the lend side in that. Take us kind of through like an ideal situation, because you're a reformed banker, right? As a reformed banker, what would you want to see in that process?
Yeah, if you've talked to, we have two program managers at Innovate Alabama for SSBCI, Walt Polstowait, who runs our Lend AL program, and Rodney Sampson, who runs our Invest AL program. And both of them will stress, when they meet with prospective borrowers or founders, readiness. And if you talk to Walt from a debt perspective, the number one thing a potential borrower can have as they come to the table is a relationship with the bank. It is very difficult to walk into a brand new bank with a new idea or the lack of collateral and have them go to bat for you. There has to be trust there. I spent 10 years as a banker, and I can't tell you how many times we saw a small business, great idea, great applicant, walk in and walk out without a loan because they were missing something in that. And maybe it's the deposit, maybe it's the collateral, maybe it's the time in business. But ultimately, to your point, preparation for the capital event is really important for SSBCI, because from a venture perspective, there are so many conditions in traditional venture space that have to be met before you're either going to get invited to pitch. And it's the same with our Invest AL program. We like seeing companies that have revenue. We like seeing companies that are organized as a C corporation, because it's really hard and difficult to invest into an LLC. And if a founder is not thinking about those things when they get in our pipeline, and it's a competitive pipeline, those are the first companies that kind of get ignored or pushed to the side. And so having conversations around, when you're planning to raise capital from a venture side, that's where we need to be involved, and you need to be ready to go, because part of our treasury compliance, and Todd said it's very important, it's of the utmost important for us, because if we are not compliant, we lose the money. And so we've got to make sure that we're following all of their regulations. And one of their regulations is we have to be involved in the transaction or close the transaction within 90 days of the match. And so that has been a challenge, and as we started from in some cases where the founder or the company has been raising, maybe had a rolling closing process and they've closed and now they're 100 days out by the time they get into the pipeline, and there's nothing we can do at that point. And so until they start raising again. And so one of the things that I would just harp on is, and it goes for both programs, is work with our TA partners, work with places like Innovation Portal to access the resources you need as a small business to be prepared to raise the capital. And it starts with your relationship with your banker. It starts with your relationship with your securities lawyer. And it starts with understanding your timeline so that you can fit into our timeline.
Yeah, Charlie, we've had conversations around the Invest AL side and some of the challenges we've seen. You talked about the 90-day window. We've seen the conversion. So if you're an LLC and you want to be part of the Invest Alabama side of the house, you need to go through a conversion process. You need to convert from an LLC to the preferred is a Delaware C Corp. So sometimes what we see is people, well, what does that look like? How does that work? You know, there are pieces there. And then you can't get an investment from the co-investor, which is what Innovate Alabama is. They're a co-investor without a lead investor. And that's a really important piece there. So what are you seeing in regard to that? You did say we've got a vibrant deal flow that's starting into there. What does that look like coming in, or what advice would you give to that person looking on the invest side?
Yeah, so it is a really robust pipeline, and to be completely transparent, like we are blown away by the activity in that pipeline. We've actually begun closing deals, and I've got a couple of announcements I can probably make.
I mean, would you guys like to hear about who's... Yeah, there you go. That's important. Yeah. Who we got, Charlie?
So we are going to be rolling out a series of press releases over the next couple of weeks announcing our first transactions.
So, this is embargoed.
Yeah, please don't tell anybody.
Even though it's live streamed, it's okay. Just don't tell everybody yet.
So probably the biggest headline deal that we're going to see in our early batch is we have an actual Mobile native, Dr. Lonnie Johnson, who you may not know the name, but you know his invention, the Super Soaker.
It changed my life as a kid. I'm going to tell you that straight up. Changed my life as a kid. Super Soaker changed the game of squirt gun battles. So thank you, Dr. Johnson.
He may be known for the Super Soaker, but he's also a NASA scientist. He's got tons of patents, and he has not operated in the state of Alabama. He's a Tuskegee graduate and has absolutely, he loves that community. And he has worked with the university in a number of different capacities over the last several years. We have recently closed a transaction with Dr. Johnson's company, JES, which is a battery company, and they're going to be rolling out enhanced operations in the state of Alabama, specifically in the Tuskegee community. The lead investor on that transaction is a former basketball player that you may or may not know. His name's Magic Johnson.
I've never heard that name before. I know Irvin.
Yeah.
I don't know Magic. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Magic is joined by Myles Garrett, who plays for the Cleveland Browns, and Steve Harvey.
I've heard that guy either.
Southern Company and Innovate Alabama. And so we're really excited. What that type of transaction does for a community, it's an investment in a founder, but what it really is a catalytic impact on a community where there's going to be jobs created in Tuskegee. There's going to be additional money and capital coming from, in this case, outside of Alabama, that's going to be invested in the state. And so we're really excited about those types of transactions. It's going to get a big headline because of the fact that it's Magic Johnson and Lonnie Johnson, but it's also
we can't call it Johnson and Johnson.
No,
okay,
no.
Good, just checking.
But that's on a big scale. But this is an opportunity. SSBCI has an opportunity to do that on a maybe just as big of a scale, but maybe with names that aren't as recognizable that can impact communities across the state. We've got a recent close that I think you're aware.
Yeah, we know a little bit about this one here in Mobile. Would you share? who that is?
Yeah, so Gia Wiggins, who I think is on your board, is that what you said?
That is correct.
Yeah,
One of our founders, a board member, friend, yes.
Yeah, Auditosity is her company. It's an HR platform that helps handle compliance issues and workflows and get companies audit ready from an HR perspective. She was one of our early transactions, and so based here in Mobile. And we have access to some data from a venture perspective. And you go back and you look at a number of years, you don't see a ton of Mobile on there, and you see a few. And so just showing the impact of the program already on places like Mobile and places like Huntsville and Birmingham and even places outside of those more mature ecosystems, we're seeing deals close that are going to grow jobs, that are going to be high growth companies and that can scale. And we're going to have an impact that's much bigger than the small investment that we're making in these companies. Relatively small. They're still big investments. But so we're excited to have Gia on board. And I know I met with her when we were at the VC Summit in Birmingham, and we talked about her. I saw her pitch, and she did a phenomenal job pitching to the venture folks that were in the audience. And so it's just those stories are just so powerful. To see capital flow into communities that aren't, typically seeing venture.
And I'll pause and give a commercial for Innovate Alabama. And I think this is really important for everybody in the audience to hear. Our statewide entrepreneurial ecosystem was very fractured. It was very fractured until really just the last few years. That meant when deal flow happened, there wasn't a lot of understanding of what a deal in Birmingham might look like down in Mobile, or you might hear about something in Huntsville, but only a little glimpse of who that company was and what that venture looked like. Well, we're at a point now, thanks to Innovate Alabama, the leadership of Cynthia Crutchfield, their CEO, and the entire team as it's really grown, and just because they're an incredible team, to be able to see more happening. And so when we talk about Innovate Alabama, we talk about the focus that brings in. They're doing it through so many different parts of our community. So they're doing it through what is one of the most innovative funding structures for accelerators in the country. The Innovating Alabama Tax Credit Program is truly something that is gaining recognition across the country when people talk about it. I hear from colleagues in different states and they go, wait, Alabama's doing what? You guys have that as the funding structure? That's incredible. So we're seeing things where this is coming together in ways, and I say this like, we have to level set of who we are and how the perception of Alabama is outside of our state and our region. We sometimes go to California and tell them things like, yes, we do have running water in Alabama inside the house, and people use the facilities inside the house. We remind people on other coasts that, by the way, Alabama has a beautiful coast. We have great beaches, and thankfully the hurricane is headed, as we said, east of us, and so not disrupting that as much. But we see these things happen, and there's so many incredible entrepreneurs who are growing. And so really this is an incredibly robust time for Alabama. We're seeing more initiatives through 2 Techstars programs, about 4 or 5 generator programs. We have programs that are taking place that we're coming together. EDPA is doing investor connector events. We're going to have another investor event coming up in the latter part of this year. We're bringing more intentional investors into the state of Alabama who are looking at our companies and going, that's in Alabama. And we want to be part of it. And I'll say as well, if you're an investor watching this, it's important for you to know why you should be in the state of Alabama and doing deals here, because money flows further. The cost of living, the cost of that profession, the cost of people to be part of an ecosystem has to take in account that if you're out in the Bay Area, that money doesn't go near as far as this Bay Area. So that's why you want to be here. There's so much happening. And so it's important, as Charlie talks about this, that you're listening in and hearing about SSBCI, but you're also exploring more and more about what Innovate Alabama does. So there's my commercial. Yes, go ahead.
I'll say I was going to make a plug based on that for our other pillars. at Innovate Alabama, we have access to resources, but we also have talent development. And so we've got a number of programs across our universities, our HBCUs, our K through 12 institutions that focus on preparing our young people for the future economy. And that's run by Shannon Allen, who does a phenomenal job. And then we are really excited about outdoor rec. And so we were in New York 2 weeks ago for a Fast Company Innovation Festival where we launched our Seek AL campaign. TC McLemore runs that program, and this is a campaign that is bringing awareness to all that Alabama has to offer in terms of outdoor resources and assets that blew people away. So you talked about people not understanding that maybe we do have white sandy beaches and a coast. People don't realize that we have the mountains as well, that we have lakes and everything in between. Golf, we've got all sorts of things that make Alabama unique. And we see data that shows that high school students and college students and young adults who are starting out their careers value outdoor spaces and what they can do outside of work. They just don't want to go to work and then come home. They also want to go play and do things, and so and raise families. And so those types of assets are really important.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. The research is showing people are choosing cities before they're choosing jobs. And that's intriguing, and so that's an important part of that. If you're a geek like me and you happen to subscribe to Fast Company magazine, pick up the most recent edition, flip it over, and all of a sudden you're going to see Seek Alabama on the back cover. I was laughing because as TC was presenting during the last Innovate Alabama board meeting, he was referring to it, and I'm looking at it, and literally the copy of it is sitting right next to me on my desk, and I went, look at that. Look at that. So lots of great things. And you did get to see Lin-Manuel Miranda.
I did,
speak.
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I met Hamilton. So.
My name is Alexander Hamilton. Sorry. There's a million things you don't know. No? Oh, no, no. I'm not. I can't do that. Oh, we're live streaming. Sorry. Sometimes I forget where I'm at. I only use a couple words, so please don't come after me, Lynn. All right. Let's get into a little bit of process stuff, because I think it's important to kind of help people understand. So when we go through it, you've alluded a little bit about different aspects of this. Walk us through the Lend AL process. So what should we be doing? How should we be doing it? What should we even expect in regard to how to prepare for those initial conversations?
Yeah, so it's going to operate pretty similar to any way that you would kind of start the process of getting a loan. So in our case, though, there's three directions, really. You can come in through visiting Innovate Alabama's website and submitting a borrower interest form, in which case we'll take it in and kick you off into the process, whether you're connecting you to a lender, connecting you to our TA partners, or just having a conversation, understanding your goals and what you're trying to do and whether you're a good fit for that program. So that's one way to get in the process. The other way is go into your bank and say, I am interested in SSBCI. We have a list of our enrolled lenders on our website. It's growing weekly. And if there's not your preferred bank or financial institution on the list, have that conversation with your banker, because it's a very seamless and easy enrollment process. There's a few certifications that the lending institution has to make, but it's a form that you just fill out, and we kind of do a little due diligence and make sure that the bank is on the up and up, and we enroll that lender. And so you can go through that way, or if you're working with SBDC or you're working with Mobile Can or the Chamber, there are ways that they can refer you over into the process. And so I would say that's the starting point. Once you have that conditional approval from the lender will send over the file to Innovate Alabama. We do not re-underwrite loans. That's not our specialty. Even though what makes our program unique is that both our program manager and myself are former bankers. Most debt programs across other jurisdictions are run by government officials or people who are in a commerce role, and so they may have some banking experience in the past, but we're recent bankers, and so we have relationships. We
use the term reformed bankers,
retired bankers.
I like reformed because it tells you you've gone straight. You've gone on the straight and narrow. There you go.
So that's unique about the program. But so our goal is not to re-underwrite the loan, but to make sure it's compliant with Treasury regulations, and we do some risk mitigation components from a compliance perspective. But ultimately, we want to have a quick turnaround. You know, we kind of get compared to maybe an SBA product that has much longer and more thorough review process once the bank refers that over to SBA. So in our case, we want to be as tight and quick as possible, and so we tend to shoot for 3 to 5 day turnaround approval process.
Okay, say that again for the people in the back.
Yeah, 3 to 5 days.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, so I mean it's a goal. So we're a startup, so we're running into issues on a transaction basis right now. So part of what we're doing is understanding. You know, we have to submit an application to Treasury to start up the programs. And, you know, maybe there are things that we can make changes to. We would consider them non-material changes that don't affect the program, but can make it easier for borrowers and lenders. So we're going through that process as we go through transactions to identify ways that we can improve efficiencies. And so ultimately, like I said, our goal is to get to 3 to 5 days. We are a startup, so we're running a little bit behind that right now, but ultimately we're going to get to that point. I'm confident of it. So once that process is approved, it will go back into that traditional lending process from a borrower perspective. From a financial institution perspective, there's some responsibilities of the lender to provide data to Innovate Alabama so that we can monitor job creation, we can monitor if the loan is in good standing, and losses that could occur. We don't expect to have many losses, but we know if we're doing our jobs right, we're making loans that may not always in the past have qualified. We're going to have some credit losses, and so understanding that we've got to monitor that, track it, and then also, you know, there's a fee component to it. So we exit the relationship after 5 years in the loan participation, after 3 years with our guarantee and our collateral support program. And so as a part of that, we require reporting, but we also require an annual fee that gets paid back into our program to make it self-sustaining. And so like I said, from a borrower perspective, it's going to be a traditional lend experience. You won't hopefully have any hiccups in the process that you wouldn't already see. Hopefully it makes it a little bit easier because there's going to be fewer questions asked around how we can make it a yes. The program does it.
And I think that's an important point. You're still going through the lending process. So if you're pursuing through LendAL, it's still a lending process. It's still that interaction with that financial institution, walking through the process there. One of the things that Walt, who is the program manager, has mentioned at the same time, he says, look, this does not make a bad loan good. Okay, so if the loan would be a bad loan for that bank to take on or that financial institution, this is not something that waves a magic wand and suddenly takes away all that risk profile. But what it does is it helps, you said credit enhancement, guarantees, participation. It does other things that lender is going to look at and say, yeah, you know what, I wanted to do this, and this gives me some strength. It gives me some strength as I think about what that process looks like.
It bolsters confidence, and so it's a combination. We want to bolster confidence, mitigate risk, and be catalytic. And so, you know, part of what we want lenders to look for are opportunities to grow jobs and grow operations, expand. So those types of activities that borrowers are doing, we want to be able to capture that as well. So there's some reporting requirements in that process that hopefully don't impact the borrower, but that the lender is aware of, and that's part of the enrollment process for them as well.
That's great. On the investment side, when we think about the InvestAL side, would you share with us a little bit about kind of where we're looking right now as it relates to timeline and other things? And then has there been the announcement of the fund of funds entities yet?
So, two questions. So I'll take the first one first.
Yep.
That's the less fun question. So yeah, so the process for Invest is pretty straightforward. So we have online on our website an application to pitch. So if you've done the readiness check and you feel like you're ready, you can apply to pitch our investment team. Our team will reach out and schedule that pitch, or will communicate that maybe it's not the right fit based on the documentation that the company's provided. After pitch, you will move into, you kind of have that another check. You move on to due diligence, or you fall out the process. And then ultimately, from a due diligence time frame, we're looking at from application to close, we want to be at about 45 days. And so, like I said, we've got you think about it, we launched in the end of June, and today was September 26th. What day is it? So we've got over 150 applications to pitch in that time frame. And you mentioned we're a startup. We're a small but mighty team, and so we've got an investment team of 3 that have to review all of the pitch documents, have to go through from a compliance perspective and make sure that these companies fit our treasury requirements. They have to schedule, sometimes reach out multiple times, because founders, I don't know if you know this, founders are pretty busy. And so part of like finding time and getting them in, and obviously coordinating with the capital raise timeline for that company. So there's a lot that goes into that early process. And then ultimately, we've got to allocate our limited dollars into what may be a lot of different companies that we want to invest in. And so we're actively doing that. And again, our goal is to obligate 80% of the tranche 1 so that we can access more capital. So I would not say like do not apply to pitch. We want to get to a place where we have rolling investments, and so we're going to maintain that pipeline. And if there are other companies that may not fit now, but we just want to stay in communication with them. From a fund to funds, yes, we have alerted or informed the funds that we've selected to move into a due diligence phase. And so we did that this week. It's not ready for public announcement yet. We've got to go through a number of hoops to make sure that the transactions are going to close and that we become that LP in those funds. But just to take a step back, the fund to funds program is different from our direct investment from a venture perspective. It is, we actually go fund managers, existing funds, who then also have a one-to-one match. So they've got to bring capital into their fund and allocate it to the state of Alabama. And so these are funds that are going to invest in Alabama companies, and it's a way of diversifying the companies that we're working with, but then also, allowing the experience and expertise of those fund managers to guide the taxpayer money into the hands of good, growing, high-growth companies. And so happy to announce that I think we had 7 funds apply and 6 were selected. So it's going to be an exciting opportunity. A few out-of-state funds were also selected, which is really awesome, because it is capital that's not raised here in Alabama. That is capital that is raised outside of Alabama that is going to be earmarked for the state of Alabama. So we're excited about that.
I think that's huge. Anytime that we can bring capital into the state and deploy it here, it is just an absolute game changer. Because again, we do live in a state where our risk profile tends to be lower. We tend to be, as a state, we're investing in real estate, timberland and redevelopment. We see those kinds of things as a normal part of the profile. And so what's happening now is through this program and others, we're seeing that increased tolerance of risk as it relates to our startup ecosystem. And that really truly has an opportunity to be a game changer. We talk about, as we think about the landscape of economic development, it's incredibly important for us to see all types. So at a community like Mobile, when we think about the role of an Airbus and Austal, Outokumpu, SSAB, and others of that are large global names, we want to think about the growth of companies like an Audacity alongside that. So we think about building our own right here in our community. And
I mentioned the robust pipeline and how that kind of shocked people. It really shouldn't have shocked people, I don't think, because of the fact that if you look at the large industries we have in Huntsville from a defense and aerospace perspective, from our banking and healthcare in Birmingham to the port city Mobile, like you think about high growth companies and they tend to skew technology, but technology is, while it's looked at as an individual sector, it's really an enabler, and it helps those companies that are huge, that maybe still operate in kind of the previous generation or the old world. It helps them become efficient and provides them new tools, and that's a really big opportunity for those kind of spoken hub communities like Mobile.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important. We talk often about the understanding that there are tech-first companies. Mm-hmm. That's what they lead with, is their technology. But every company now is a tech company in some way, shape, or form. And so we're seeing that transformation. And I think that's important. And Charlie said it, so we'll put that idea thought out there that this is important for you to be thinking about if you're looking at the old world things. We think about maritime, we think about logistics. A lot of things that were done by paper and pencil or stored up here, we're looking at the opportunity to digitalize those. And so we're seeing new companies that are coming online as that happens. Charlie, as we think about kind of wrapping this framework right here, what do you see? I mean, like, look ahead 3 years in the future as it relates to SSBCI, and share with us, what do you see as the impact from that program?
It's a great question. So, obviously, when we built out the application, we had to commit to certain metrics and how we would judge performance of the programs. And a lot of that was around job creation. A lot of that was around expected capital matching to the programs. And I think that's true. I think ultimately we're going to judge performance on outcomes, on how many companies we invested in, how much diversity we had in terms of geography, in terms of urban and rural. Like, we want to make sure that we are providing resources across the state and not just focusing on traditional ecosystems that have always done a lot of venture. And that's one of the ways we're leaning into our Lend AL program, where if you go outside of Innovation Portal or Innovation Depot, you may not have venture-ready companies. And so access to capital is probably going to come through debt or some type of grant program that we also work with, some of the grant programs of the state at Innovate Alabama. So part of our success is going to be that, shotgun mentality where we want to get resources out to everybody. But ultimately, we're going to be judged on our economic impact. And so we've got metrics that we're tracking in terms of our job creation, in terms of companies retained or attracted. And so I think the important thing, though, is that we have not been successful if we have not made the program self-sustaining. So it was designed that way. We want this to be around a long time. And so, as I mentioned earlier, like, part of our mission is this is taxpayer money. Let's be good stewards of the money and make sure that we are getting the return that we've promised Treasury that we're going to seek, and that when we get that return, we're reinvesting it into the communities to make it self-sustaining and evergreen. And so that this is a long program that is going to be around for generations to come.
And I think that's so important as we think about our community here on coastal Alabama, is to watch what's happening. Because again, for transformation to happen, we have to have, we say, the top of the funnel working, meaning we have to have ideas starting. So if you're out there and you think you have an idea and you want to be able to test that, we have a great program. That application closes on Sunday, the 29th. That is the Idea Accelerator program, Builders and Backers. I know you got a chance to be on a panel with Donna Harris, their CEO, recently. That's a great opportunity to start into that. If you're going forward in the program, we have amazing programs. The University of South Alabama has a minority business development and the minority business acceleration programs. We have at the Mobile Black Chamber of Commerce the Build a Business Accelerator, and that program is coming to a head. We'll be finishing shortly. We have programs through Vivian's Door. We have programs through the city of Mobile with supplier diversity and small businesses. We have programs at the Chamber. We have programs here at Innovation Portal. We have programs across the bay at the Hatch. There are so many opportunities to start and scale businesses now, and that's incredibly important. And so having the fuel, that oxygen that we can really be able to breathe in, is such an important part of that journey. And Charlie, if somebody's out there and they're like, oh, where do I go to learn more about this? Where's the website again?
InnovateAlabama.org/programs will take you to all of our capital programs. You can select the State Small Business Credit Initiative if you're interested in SSBCI, but don't limit yourself to that because there are some other great programs that we are the implementation vehicle for with the state.
Absolutely. So many great opportunities. We're excited to have you in, and we thank you for joining us live. Again, reminder, October 16th, Coffee Chat, November 12th, the Innovation Showcase, and if you're interested in 3D modeling, that opportunity is tonight. This is Thursday, September 26th, so if you're watching it in an archive, sorry, you missed it. But we hope that you'll be able to join us for those programs. Charlie Pond, SSBCI, Executive Director for Innovate Alabama, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it.